What if your child isn't just really busy, hyperactive, or just too much, but their nervous system is just completely overwhelmed? Every week, we sit with parents who are doing so many things right. They've tried the routines, the behavior charts, the diet changes, the therapies, and yet their child is still struggling. Transitions feel impossible. Sleep is a battle. Sensory overload shows up out of nowhere. And the reports from school, well, those aren't so great. So parents go looking for answers, and what they find are labels: ADHD, anxiety, autism, sensory processing. And while those labels may describe what's happening on the surface, they don't explain why it's happening in the first place. Because underneath it all, what so often we find is that the nervous system is stuck in a stress state. We find a brain that never shuts off and a body that is constantly in go mode, even when exhausted. That's what we call busy brain syndrome. So if your child feels wired and worn out at the same time, melts down over just the smallest thing, struggles to sleep, or feels like they take one step forward and two steps back no matter what you try, you're not just imagining it. And you're definitely not the only family dealing with these struggles. So in this video, we're going to walk through what busy brain syndrome really is, why it happens, and how often it starts long before the school years even begin. You're going to see how this shows up in sleep, behavior, speech, and sensory challenges, why so many therapies hit a plateau, and what changes when you support the nervous system first. So let me share a story that brings this to life. So not long ago, a 13-year-old started in our office. An incredible kid, smart, funny, full of personality, but his entire life, he had lived in a constant state of on. Always wired, always wound up, amped up, sensory struggles, and sleep that just never came easily. His family has done everything they were told to do. They have pursued therapies, made changes at home, followed every recommendation, but no one has ever stopped to ask a deeper question. What is his nervous system actually doing underneath all of this? When we evaluated him, that's exactly where we started. And then after one of his adjustments, something powerful happened. With a very gentle correction to the top of his neck, the area that directly impacts how the brain and the body communicate, his system shifted. For the first time in nearly 13 years, his body slowed down. Not because we forced it to, not because we managed behavior, but because his nervous system finally felt safe enough to come out of that constant stress mode. Now, that's not a miracle. That's what happens when you address the foundation. And here's the part most people aren't talking about. For many of these kids, this pattern, it doesn't start at age 2 or 5 or even 10. It often begins before they're even born. We know that a mother's stress chemistry during pregnancy can cross directly into the baby and influence how their brain and their nervous system develop. So if that system is already being shaped under stress from the very beginning, it's no surprise that we later see challenges with sleep, behavior, emotional regulation, and sensory processing. This is where the story really begins. So let's break this down in a way that is easy to understand. When we talk about busy brain syndrome, we're really talking about how your child's nervous system is functioning and it's regulating in the day-to-day. So at the most basic level, your child's nervous system, they have two kind of main modes. We like to explain those two modes as gas pedal and brake pedal. Now the gas pedal is the sympathetic nervous system. So that's the part responsible for fight or flight. It's designed to turn on when there is stress, help us respond, and then it should just turn back off. Now the brake pedal is the parasympathetic nervous system. That's what allows your child to calm down, to fall asleep, to process emotions, digest, and connect with the world around them. A big part of that system is controlled by the vagus nerve. So in kids with busy brain patterns, the gas pedal is essentially just stuck on. Their system is running in a constant state of alert, not because they're choosing to, and not because they're misbehaving, but because their body doesn't know how to shift out of stress mode. And when a child is already operating at that level, their capacity is completely maxed out. Their sensory threshold becomes much lower. Things that might feel small or manageable to you can feel completely overwhelming to them because their system is already overloaded before the day even starts. So the next question becomes, why does this happen? This is where we talk about what we call the perfect storm. So for many kids, this pattern starts during pregnancy. A mother's stress chemistry doesn't just stay with her, it crosses to the baby and begins shaping how the baby's brain and nervous system develop from the very beginning. If that system is wired under stress, it can set the stage for a more reactive system after birth. Then we look at the birth process itself. Even in well-supported deliveries, there can be physical stress placed on baby's upper neck and brainstem. In more complicated births with long labor or with interventions, that stress can be even greater. This area is incredibly important because it's where the brain and the body communicate and where the vagus nerve is most vulnerable. Then as that child grows, we layer on early childhood stressors, things like repeated ear infections, antibiotic use, environmental toxins, screen exposure, or just the pace and the overstimulation in modern life. Each of these adds another layer to a system that may already be struggling to regulate in the first place. Over time, it builds. One phase stacks on top of the next, and what you end up with is a nervous system that is stuck in protection mode. And when the brain is focused on protection, it's not focused on development, connection, or regulation. That's when you start to see how this shows up in everyday life. Now, sleep is often one of the first places that parents notice. These kids have a hard time winding down. Their bodies feel restless. Their minds keep going even when they're exhausted. They may wake up frequently or seem to never truly get restful sleep. You may also see it in communication. Speech and language require focus, processing, and the ability to filter out distractions. So when a child's brain is overwhelmed with stress signals, those higher level functions take a back seat. Emotionally, it can look like big reactions to small situations and a really hard time calming back down once they're upset. Not because they're being dramatic, but because their brain doesn't have the capacity to de-escalate in that moment. Sensory challenges are another big piece. You might notice that your child is covering their ears, they're avoiding certain textures, or constantly seeking movement like jumping, crashing, or spinning. That movement isn't random. It's often their body's way of trying to regulate and release a lot of that built-up tension. And socially, this can make things harder to do. When a child's nervous system is stuck in survival mode, their brain prioritizes safety over connection. That makes it more difficult to read social cues and build relationships. Now, at this point, many families have already tried therapies. Occupational therapy, speech therapy, behavioral support, and those are all incredibly valuable. But if the nervous system is still stuck in fight or flight, those therapies are working on top of a system that isn't ready to fully receive or integrate the work. It's like trying to remodel a house with a cracked foundation. Or it's like pushing a car forward while the parking brake is still on. Everyone is putting in the effort, and your child is trying. The therapists are working really hard, but the nervous system is still holding things back. So this is where addressing the foundation changes everything. With neurologically focused chiropractic care, we start by measuring what's actually going on in your child's nervous system. So using insight scans, we can see where stress and tension are building, and what's impacting communication between the brain and the body. From there, we use very gentle, very specific adjustments, especially in the upper neck where the atlas and the axis sit. Now, this area plays a major role in how the nervous system functions and where we often see the most interference. Now, that interference, what we call subluxation, is a combination of restricted movement and disrupted communication within the nervous system. So when that's present, the brain and the body aren't able to coordinate the way they're designed to. As that interference begins to clear, the system can start to regulate again. And when that happens, everything built on top of it starts to work better. Therapies begin to click. Progress that once felt really inconsistent, that becomes steadier. Your child has more capacity to learn, to adapt, and to handle the world around them, because now their brain isn't stuck in survival mode. If you're seeing your child stuck in this cycle, the meltdowns, the sleepless nights, the sensory overwhelm, the constant feeling of one step forward and two steps back, you don't have to accept this as their normal. This is another way to look at this. And more importantly, there is a path forward. This isn't about taking anything away from what you're already doing. It's about looking underneath it all and asking a better question. What is the nervous system doing? And how does it have the capacity to support the progress we're working so hard for? Because when you start with the foundation, everything else has a chance to work the way it's supposed to. So at E320, we use neurologically focused care to do exactly that. We don't guess, we measure. Using insight scans, we can see where stress and tension are building in your child's nervous system and how that's impacting their ability to regulate, to rest, and to develop. And then from there, we use gentle, specific care to help the nervous system shift out of that constant stress state and back toward balance. And when that happens, you start to see real change, not just in one area, but across the board. So if this is resonating with you, the next step is simple. Go ahead and reach out to our team. You can click the link, you can send us a message, or you can call us directly at 864-367-6766. We'll walk you through exactly what this looks like and help you decide what's right for your family. Because your child doesn't need more labels, they need answers.